Good afternoon, and welcome to Jeff and the Rabbi. You know, I got something to say today. Rabbi Freeman, I think you're a holiday snob. I'm going to tell you that right now. I didn't want to come out and say it, but I had to do it. I think you are a holiday snob. Rabbi Freeman sends me this text. I finally get it. It says, only Jews at the Seder. Nobody else, no intermarried couples, wives, anything like that, nothing like that, only Jews. So I got to thinking again, you pretty much are a 20th century guy. This is the 21st century. I don't know. Right. You're not really going up to modern days. Listen, even in the olden days, everybody else is way more inclusive. The Christians, back in the Middle Ages, they went out of their way to bring Jews into their religion nicely. They formed these crusades. They went and gathered us up nicely, inquisitions, and brought us into the religion. The Muslims, we don't even talk about the Muslims. They're probably the most open people in the world about religion. They are, they always ask us to be in the religion, and they don't take no for an answer. Their growth is explosive. They're huge. Yeah, they're all over the place. Today, in modern society, in the 21st century, we don't celebrate uniqueness. We don't celebrate individuality. We celebrate everyone understanding that we're all the same.
Right.
Men and women are the same. Boys and girls, everybody's the same. In fact, today, boys and girls, if you feel like you're more feminine today, you can go into and change in the girls' locker room. You can do things like that, and vice versa. Why is it only you, always you, Rabbi Freeman, that has to say, no, we're individuals. I'm not going to go along with society? Have you been audited, by the way? Because you just don't seem to want to go along.
Right.
Obama has a Seder in the White House. He's not Jewish.
Right. I'm just trying to find a set of letters that can go before my name, like I need to be part of some LGB, LMNOP.
Right.
If you don't have a bunch of letters that describes what you are before you get to your name, then and what community you're from. I was thinking maybe J.E.W.
But you can't have that because diversity, I understand, of course, we all celebrate diversity, but we're one and the same. Why can't we all just get along?
Right. Right. And all these questions, I get the phone calls all the time. The local churches, the pastors, they like to invite me to come attend their Seder. They ask if they can come attend my Seder. People, I bump into people in the Kroger and they're shopping and they want to know which type of matzahs that they're supposed to use at the Seder. And I said, are you Jewish? And they said, no, but we're doing this for our church. Everybody's doing a Seder.
It's an open society. That's great.
It is the thing to do, right? They're all missing the point.
But I thought the point was that we all are one, we all share, we all get along. Right. That's not it?
You know what? Those points, that when people believe that what they really mean is that they don't believe in anything. No, if you believe that it's for everyone, then it's really for no one, because it's nothing. It's nice. If it's a nice thing, if it's like an Easter egg hunt, which everyone, I think, believes doesn't have any particular significance, then sure, let every religion and anyone can do an Easter egg hunt, I believe. Right?
I think you're allowed. I'm pretty sure anybody can hunt an Easter egg.
Right. But how about celebrating a guy gets sick and he's born and he needs a bunch of operations and he survives the operations and he finally gets through this whole experience and his family has to send him to special schooling because he's got all kinds of disabilities, and finally they get through all of that and he gets his degree, or maybe even gets some great award. He wins a Nobel Prize and they have a special party for him. So do you think that's a party for everyone? Or is that a party for the people that were with him, that helped him, that cried over him, that taught him? Who would you invite to that party? Maybe invite his teachers, invite his parents, invite his siblings. Are they going to celebrate? Is this like an experience that everyone's going to come and celebrate what it is to be born handicapped? You can't do that if you're not it. If it's for real, if it really is experiencing something, you just can't have everyone do it. It's a real experience. Now, if it's just a made-up thing where everyone's supposed to get the feel of what it is to be, then okay, fine, you can do that. But if you think it's for real, if you're really talking about something, if it's really telling a story, if it's a real story that you believe really happened, then it's a whole different experience.
I guess I can see that.
The problem is if it's just, our tradition and your tradition, which tradition I think in modern terms means, things that you made up to make life more juicy and colorful.
Right, right.
But really, it's not like something that really, based on something that really happened and all that. It's like everyone knows, Thanksgiving, I don't know, pilgrims, Indians, I don't know.
Or on Seinfeld, you watch Seinfeld, Festivus. They made the holidays so they could sell Christmas and everything together. That was George's family. So they made a Festivus with their own traditions.
Right. There you go.
So,
but all that really means nothing. But to us, it really means something. If it does really mean something, then you'd want to get very particular, because this is a very important family occasion where something is happening that is really significant to me and my family, and I want to tell my kids about it. And when I want to tell my kids about it, I want to explain how personal it is to me. When I want to tell my kids about something that happened to my grandfather is my kid's great-grandfather. And I want them to feel that sense. I don't want to explain to a kid what happened to my grandfather, but it's not his grandfather. And if we want to say, well, we want to have that universal experience, you can't have universal experience, because if it's a universal experience, it's really no one's experience.
I understand that.
We contend that each experience, maybe different people have different experiences, and there's a big mix, but you have to have your own experience which really, really drives you, it invigorates you, it makes you what you are, as opposed to the other person. But if I'm the Asian boat people experience, and the Castro boat people experience, and the sneaking into America through the border patrol experience, and the Holocaust survivor experience, and right? Well, then what am I really?
Well, I'm not. I see. Well, but some people say that's great. That means you're
right.
an American. That means you're a human.
That's right. That's right. And that is, to them, that is great, because they really don't want there to be any peculiarism or particularism.
Or individuality.
Right. And they say you should try that next time they get on an airplane.
Right.
Next time they get on an airplane, everyone's going to have, it's a 5-hour flight, everyone will have 5 minutes flying the plane. Everyone, come on, why have a pilot?
True.
Why have a pilot? It's really not fair. Why should he only be able to go there? Everyone should have, right? And then, we'll see how that goes. See if
it won't work out as well.
See if we ever get off the runway,
No, probably not.
Everyone crash and burn and die, because we're going to crash on the runway.
So you think that Passover, in particular, is just for the Jews?
I think Passover is just for the Jews.
Well, obviously, that leads to certain problems in today's realities. There are a lot of Jewish people now that are intermarried.
So I want to take it even a step further.
Okay.
Yeah, and I understand the intermarriage, and perhaps, and I understand why the people who are intermarried would, of course, want to have their children and spouses and extended family on the other side, and everyone would want to come celebrate together. But I would contend that if they had been celebrating Passover and the Seder the right way to begin with, they might not have been intermarried.
True.
I don't. Now they're intermarried. So, well, what am I supposed to do? And you're kind of right. And I don't really know what to say, because that's closing the barn door after the horses ran away.
Okay, gotcha.
But this story that we have, it's not just a celebration. Why don't you know? It is really, it's kind of a hard knocks story. It's, real a comeuppance, a real eye-opener in the story. It says in the Mishnah that when you tell the story, however you tell the story, it's got to start off with disgrace, and it's got to end up with praise. And the disgrace is our disgrace, and the praise is praise to God. If people really want to do it that way, then they can hear a message. Most people really don't want to do it that way. What's disgraceful? What's the disgrace? What's the big disgrace about our past? Here's one that's really not popular. The disgrace about our past, there's two versions. We'll start with one version first. The one version is that we were slaves. Do you know what? That's disgraceful.
That's disgraceful.
To have come from an ancestry of slaves is disgraceful.
Okay, I'll give you that one. I don't know why, but
you know why? Because it's not very respectable to be a slave.
Definitely not respectable. No.
No. Now, in modern society, we have been taught that is respectable, especially if it wasn't your fault. I mean, no one really signs up for slavery. Usually someone else puts you into it. But for centuries upon centuries upon centuries, people that became slaves were deemed losers, sort of like slaves.
No, really
and slaves is really like, way down there. Yeah. You didn't want to be a slave. And the story starts out, originally, this is how the story starts out. Originally, we were slaves. That is really embarrassing because, we don't think originally, we owned the company. No. Originally, you were a slave.
So that's not a badge of honor. It's not. No football team is going to be like the Washington Slaves.
Right.
No one's going after that. That's bad.
That would really be bad.
That would be bad, yeah.
That wouldn't go too well. Can you imagine that?
Not at
Washington Slaves. Especially because they always lose.
Well,
Some slaves are losers. Like, why'd you want to name your team after slaves? The losers,
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing.
Yeah, the other team ends up standing on top of you.
Right. Oops.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we were slaves. There's another version of the story that says originally we were idolaters. That's also sort of an uncomfortable part of our past. Can you imagine? We've got these two things in our past. That we were idolaters, like dancing around sticks and stones and totem poles and stuff like that. And, bowing down to stuff every now and then, throwing a baby into the fire or something like that to appease the gods. That is so embarrassing. Like, did you guys actually believe that? Yeah, my family really believed it. They were so into it.
Again, the Indianapolis idolaters were probably not the another team you want to play.
Yeah, the pagans. The Pennsylvania pagans.
Right, it's not going to work.
Yeah, the pagans don't go so well.
No.
So we were pagans. That's A. It's worshiping idolatry. And B, we were slaves. All of that is very, very embarrassing. Now, those are the two versions. When it says you're supposed to start off with the embarrassment, you're supposed to start off with either starting the story, here's the story. A long time ago, we were fill in the blank, either slaves or a long time ago, we were idolaters. Right. You start the story from there and you can go on from that point. But you have to start with that. That's very embarrassing. Nowadays, our society says, no, don't be embarrassed about anything. Anything that you have, anything that you come from, it's all of it. It's very respectable and all that stuff, right? If you used to, let's say, abuse other people and maybe even chop their heads off and eat them or whatever, but you were living naturally. You had your traditions,
and your parents will probably beat you when you were young, which started that. But
right. But all that's okay because that's the way everyone's going to respect everywhere they came from. We say no. That's pretty embarrassing. We don't think that is so. It's something that we want to harken back to. We're really happy that we got away from that. We don't like slavery. We don't like idolatry, and we're kind of embarrassed about having been slaves or having been idol worshippers. We are really happy we got away from that now. And we have risen. How do we get out of there? Because God stepped in and He took us out of there. Had He not taken us out of that situation, we would still be stuck there. That is what the Seder is all about. So if people want to repudiate, if people want to contend with their embarrassing past and deal with that, and in the end come to a moment of gratitude,
right?
Then, maybe the Seder is for them. This is for a group of people that are willing to appreciate that, I came from a long way away, and I came to where I am now. That's a big deal. That's a very big deal. I was just listening to something. They introduced a guy. He's a cellist.
Right.
His name is Isserlish. Some guy's last name is Isserlish. And they say he comes from a great pedigree. His father was a famous cellist.
Right.
And his mother is a descendant of Felix Mendelssohn. great composer. So he
Right.
comes from a great
Right.
musical pedigree.
All right.
Okay. Now, it just so happens that he comes from another pedigree, but he doesn't know anything about that. You know what his pedigree is?
What's that?
He is a descendant of the great Rabbi Moshe Isserlish, one of the great sages of all time in Judaism.
Didn't know that.
One of the big names, you may have heard this, what we call the Code of Law, the Shulchan Aruch. The glosses, the comments of Rabbi Moshe Isserlish are essential to every single page in the Shulchan Aruch. It's great. It's huge. And you walk up to this guy, he doesn't know anything about it. My perspective, I say, wow, your name is Isserlish? You're a descendant of him. You walk up to him, you say, your name is Isserlish? He says, yes, I'm descendant from the cellist, Isserlish. Now, on his mother's side, he's descended from Felix Mendelssohn. Felix Mendelssohn's grandfather was also a great Jew, except that his son married non-Jews, and Felix was not Jewish.
Oh, okay.
So therefore, on that side, they're not Jewish. So you know what they got? He could say, I'm a great Jew, of great pedigree, and a great heritage, but instead, he's not Jewish.
Wow.
So what has he got? He's got the cello.
That's about it.
And that's it. That's
Wow.
what he's got. He's got the cello. So, you know, when he reads the family Haggadah, and he sits around the Seder, so, well, once upon a time, someone in my family was this, but we opted out. Now I've got the cello.
Cello, okay.
And he can tell the cello story. And if that's what he wants, and that's what he feels, that's who he is, it's fine. You know, to me, I feel sad for him because he's got a great heritage that he probably, maybe he knows about. Probably
But does he have the right to get it back?
At this point, he's like everyone else in the world. And if he wanted to convert to Judaism, I guess he could. I guess he could. But he's, you know, he's out. So when he goes to the Seder, if someone says, well, you want to invite him to the Seder? Well, the question is this a shared experience?
Right.
And what am I going to communicate to him? Is it his legacy? Can you all of a sudden adopt a legacy? If I feel that I am a descendant of the American Indians and the travail of the Cherokee and the Trail of Tears and all that, that's who I am. Does that mean that's who I am?
But in America today, we want to celebrate that everybody shares his experiences. We have to share this common Trail of Tears for the Cherokees. We have to share that. We should share what happened to the Jews. We should share what happened to the black people as slaves in America. We have to share this. We share common experiences.
Right.
Why these personal freedoms are just about you, or are they about everybody?
Wait, so we live in a very interesting place, this country, the United States of America.
Right.
We live in a very interesting place because this is what we're trying to project. And the reason we project this is we don't want anyone to look down on anyone else. We're afraid. What happens is people lose their peculiarity. People lose their exceptionalism. And everyone's exceptional in a certain way. But when you share everything, you lose the exceptionalism. You know what's going on in the Ukraine right now? The truth is that there's some people live in the eastern part of the Ukraine, and some people live in the western part, and some in the north, and some in the south. And you know what? They're all different. And they know they're different. Yeah. The people in the western Ukraine know that they are entirely different people than the people in eastern Ukraine. They'll tell you right away. Those people are Russian people. They're Russian by ethnicity. That's who they are. People in the West, they say, no, we're different people. We're more associated with the Poles and all that.
Right.
We're different people. We don't presume to be as people. We have innate differences. We act differently. We conduct ourselves differently. We are satisfied by other things, and we demand different things. People are different. In all around the world, people are talking about this. When you look at Syria. What's going on in Syria? There's this one group, and there's that one group. Right. Now, they're all fighting with each other.
Yeah.
And in the United States, we say, well, we don't have to fight. But we ignore, at our own peril, the differences that are people. So the rest of the world seems to understand that people have a certain innate uniqueness, and people don't want to throw that away. People embrace it. The Japanese, they're all one people. They all like certain things. They all come from the same place. You look at their DNA. I mean, their DNA is like so strongly matched. All the Japanese. They are so strongly matched in their DNA that they all come from, so no one knows where they're coming from, but they all got there somehow.
Right.
And that is a certain type of person, and they like the way they like it. They appreciate life that way. And in the United States, which happens to be made up of people who came from all over the place, we're all about mixing. It's got its values, but it's got its downside. And its downside is that people lose their sense of exceptionalism. And it's very important for people to feel a sense of legacy, because a sense of legacy gives me a sense of identity, who I am and what I am.
You're definitely not speaking the progressive language right here, and I, a defender of progressive language, are kind of upset about this. And what you're saying is we're allowed to be unique.
Yeah.
We're allowed to be different. We don't have to accept what we're told. So you're saying if you're let's just make it up, a baker, and you make wedding cakes, and you don't feel that you should have to make a wedding cake for this group of people because it goes against your religion, you should be allowed to not make that wedding cake?
Yeah. And not only do I think you should be allowed to not make that wedding cake, if you want to make the cakes that taste a certain way,
right,
because that's the way you like them, and that's the way your family likes them, and that's the way your people like them, you can make them that way. And if someone doesn't want to shop there, they can go shop somewhere
But aren't
else.
you discriminating against these other people?
Yeah, right. And you can do that. Because
Are you saying that if you're a rabbi and you don't believe in a certain thing and you don't want to marry these people, you have a right not to marry these people?
Right, and that's
Well,
that's my right.
You're stepping on some lines here.
I can still say that. I am still saying that.
This show does go out on that internet thing,
Right.
and people can hear this.
That's
now.
right. That's right. Exercising my last few moments.
See, I think that's where you're going to have a problem with. I like your argument, but where you stand in the way of progressivism. You stand in the way because you're saying that even if there's a guy at this college that doesn't know if he's a guy or a girl, and he dresses as a guy one day, dresses as a girl someday, you don't have to build a separate bathroom from him.
Right.
You don't have. He's not allowed to go into the women's locker room.
So actually, really, what it gets right down to, and
you know what? By the way, I would take it back to here
yes,
somehow. That
yes.
we're going down here.
I tell you what it gets down to is that ultimately, I believe that people are different. Males are different than females and things like that, even by their very act of birth. Males are different than females, and people that are born of one set of parents are different than the other set of parents. And actually, with all deference to Marlo Thomas, you can't just be everything that you want to be, and no one can do that. And actually, you are what you are more than you can be what you want to be. You
By the way,
can't
for you people under 60, Marlo Thomas is the daughter of Danny Thomas.
Both of which are like probably 8,000 years old.
Well, I think
by
Danny
now,
Thomas
if they're
isn't
still
around.
alive.
I know he's not around anymore.
Yeah, he's probably not around, and I don't know if she is around. But
I don't even know if she is either. But that was back in probably the 40s when they had that radio that you probably
That's
heard.
right. That's right. That's right. We used to tell one of the brothers had to go out back and be cranking the little generator to keep enough electricity going. And sometimes the tubes burnt out and all that.
I just didn't want to age you here, didn't
Yeah.
you? That's fine.
So people are whoever people are what they are, and this is a time, the Haggadah, the story that we tell, which is told at the Seder, is a time for a particular group of people to tell their story. Most importantly, to themselves. They can tell their story to everyone else all year long.
Okay.
But there's one night a year where they need to tell the story to themselves. And if any time, any era, any day and age needed the Jews to get together and tell the story to themselves and appreciate their uniqueness and appreciate their destiny and appreciate their shared experience, it's now, because the Jewish child and most Jews don't really understand their shared experience. They really don't understand their destiny. They don't understand there's no sense of mission, and it falls into a backdrop of the entire world because no one really has a particular sense of mission, goal in that type of language. So the Seder, so when people say that the Seder is only for Jews, there's not really a rule. There could be non-Jews at the Seder. Maybe in temple times, only Jews could eat of the Paschal lamb, but we're not talking about that now. That's not part of our world. Certainly, anyone, Jew or non-Jew, is legally allowed to be at a Seder and participate in it and all that. I'm just arguing that perhaps people should focus on communicating their unique family message before they start to broaden it out and make it a universal message. The fact that everyone wants to make it a universal message really is because they don't believe it's a unique family message.
Well, and I totally agree with that, but I guess the question is that if you have to accept the reality of some of the times that we live in, and let's say you're a Jewish woman, you have Jewish children, you're married to a non-Jewish man, I think the problem she has is, one, she needs to pass this on to her children, and I know it's usually the father's job to pass it on to the children, but this story that you're talking about has to be passed on to these children. But does she exclude the husband from would it be better or worse for her to exclude her husband from the passing on this story?
Most likely, what that person needs to do is that person needs to learn the story, him or herself,
Right.
and understand it and appreciate it. The reason most people don't feel like this is because they don't really appreciate that there's anything that they're passing on. So, of course, they have a universalist type of Seder because what are they passing on? Who are they? What are they? So really people need to go back and ask themselves, why did Jews do this? What was that message that they're passing on? I would venture to say most Jews don't appreciate what message it is because it wasn't passed on to them. First, let them learn the message. Then they'll take a different look at how it should be passed on.
Oh, that's
something
a good point.
It's actually something very personal, something very sensitive, something very, very close to themselves. And in a way, people who share that legacy, they feel and they know of themselves that there's something different. And I just was talking to a fellow who has sort of been trying to find himself. And recently, he found out a lot about a particular ancestor that he has, whom he's named after. And he saw pictures of this person, and he started learning about this person, and he received some books that had belonged to that person. It's so interesting that he feels himself as a person more grounded because he's connected to that other ancestor, because now he feels like he came from somewhere. He knows, he found his identity. And identity, which we're now told is like whatever you want to pick, maybe it's not. Maybe it's really something that's bequeathed.
Right. Yeah.
It's something that's bequeathed. It's something that's inherited. And it's a real treasure. If you're a Jew, it's a real treasure that you have. You should know about it. Other people also have their treasures. But the Jews should learn about theirs. Find out about your treasure. Before you have universalized your message, find out about the uniqueness and the particularity of your own message. How you came from nowhere. And as this story goes, God brought you to a great place, and how you have to thank Him because but for the grace of God, go I. A lot of other people didn't make it. The history of the Jewish people is a pretty unique one, wandering around the world, and they've always had a tremendous impact on their environment and the world all around them. And other people are not so. Are Jews not happy? When you think back on it, are you happy that you're identified with that group of people? Or would you rather be identified with some other group of people that hasn't made all that much of a contribution to mankind? If you are happy that you're identified with that people, then the next question is, how did that happen, that one group of people is like that and other groups are not like that? You want to delve into that. And maybe you'll start to say, well, there were circumstances and things like that. Then you'll start to see, as you study the story, there were so many circumstances and things that just happened to happen here and there and there, and all the right turns were made left and right. And that's exactly the story. And I'll just read you a little quote from the Haggadah. Okay? It says like this. This is right at the very beginning.
By the way, for our intermarried couples, the Haggadah is the book that we
That's right, that we're going to read at the Seder. Yeah. That's right. And Passover night. It says originally our ancestors were idolaters. As it says, Joshua said to the people, Joshua is giving the people a little history lesson upon their entry into the land of Israel. So says God, the Lord of Israel, on the other side of the river, that's the other side of the Euphrates, your forefathers dwelt forever. There was a man named Terach, and he was the father of Abraham and the father of Nochar. And they were worshiping idols. I took your father Abraham from the other side of the river. I took him out throughout the whole land of Canaan, I multiplied his children, and I gave him Isaac. I gave Isaac Jacob and Esau. Esau moved into a place called Mount Seir, and Jacob and his children went down to Egypt, and so the story goes. Notice what just happened there. There was Terach, he's just a guy, and he had 2 sons. Guess what? The Jews are from one of those sons. What happened to Nachor's children? I don't know where they are now.
I don't know.
I don't know what they're doing now, but the Jews are from Abraham's children. How do you like that? Selection. One side, the other side. Okay, Abraham had a whole bunch of children. He had 2 wives, he had a bunch of children. He had Ishmael, and he had all these children of Keturah, whom he sent out eastward to wherever they went, and he had Isaac. All the Jewish people came from Isaac. There was a selection there. Could have gone to any of Abraham's children. Particularly went through that one. Isaac had 2 children, Esau, Jacob. Well, there's a big split. I could have been from the Esau people. Instead, I'm from the Jacob people. In this whole story, which means over and over and over again, there was natural selection. And this is what I feel if you've ever spoken to a Holocaust survivor. All Holocaust survivor stories are identical. They all tell the story about how they almost got killed about 6 times, and then they survived. All the same. And I was almost died, and I was sick, and they left me behind for dead, and then somehow I woke up, and I staggered into the next town. And the guy shot the bullet, and it hit something, bounced off, and then I was going to get in that truck. Instead, for some reason, I got in that truck, and that truck blew up, and this truck. And I always have the same story. The idea is that there's a lot of selections are made. And if you happen to be the one that keeps getting through the selection, it's like your bracket. You got all the way to the end. It's not just that I picked what the team was going to win, but I got all the way through. All those choices, all those selections. That's pretty special, and you have to stop and appreciate it. How did I get here?
That's a good point. You make a good point every once in a while, Rabbi Freeman.
Yeah.
That was one of your good ones.
Yeah,
that's a good point. All right, so maybe Passover this year. I know you people out there that have situations that. Maybe you're in intermarriage, maybe, whatever it is. But you know what? The point of the story, I guess, is, listen, you got here for a particular reason. Mm-hmm. You're here for a reason. You've selected a reason. You need to pass on that story, where you came from.
And if you didn't find out about it until now's the time to start to find out about your particular legacy and heritage and the gift of who you are.
Excellent. All right. Well, I guess we're still back next week. Not
next
Passover.
Week, yeah.
We're still all right. Good. Well, we'll see.
More to talk about.
We'll talk about more. Happy Passover.